A silent tension gripped the command deck of the Eternal Dominion, a colossal Galactic Union warship hovering just beyond Earth's stratosphere. Supreme Commander Varric stood at the central viewport, his elongated fingers clasped behind his back, his expression an unreadable mask of superiority. Below, the blue-green world rotated in its slow, indifferent orbit, oblivious of the fate soon to befall it. The intelligence reports were accurate, murmured General Rax, his second-in-command. The planet is fractured. Their species fights amongst itself. Their technology is generations behind ours. This will be over before the week is out. Varric's silver eyes flicked toward the holographic projection beside him, a topographical scan of Earth's landmasses and military installations. The planet's jungles, mountains, and sprawling forests were highlighted in deep green, largely uninhabited and irrelevant. The real threats, what little there were, existed in the crumbling metropolises, where antiquated war machines and crude ballistic weaponry still sputtered their final resistance. Indeed, Varric replied, his voice smooth as polished steel. A simple exercise in force projection. Deploy the mechanized legions. Wipe out all remaining strongholds. This world will kneel before the Galactic Union, before its next lunar cycle. Orders rippled outward. Within moments, the sky burned. Orbital strikes carved deep scars into the Earth, vaporizing entire districts in plumes of fire and ash. Warships descended, releasing fleets of hunter drones that swarmed the skies, executing any semblance of resistance. Troop carriers followed, their metal bellies opening to unleash bipedal war machines. Towering construct of steel and plasma, built to trample outdated militaries beneath their crushing treads. The invasion proceeded flawlessly. Within days, Earth's major cities lay in smoldering ruin. Broadcasts fell silent. No formal surrender had been issued, but it no longer mattered. The Galactic Union was not here for terms. They were here for submission. Varric observed the conquest from his command throne, watching with mild amusement as his forces crushed the last desperate human pockets of resistance. These primitive creatures, with their projectile-based weaponry and inefficient tactics, had lasted longer than anticipated, but only marginally. "Prepare the next phase," he said, waving a hand at the holographic display. "Secure the remaining territories. Eliminate stragglers." General Rax nodded. "The remaining landmasses are mostly wilderness. We will send in scouting parties to cleanse them." Wilderness. Varric let out a short, mirthless chuckle. "Let them hide in their trees. Machines do not fear the jungle. On Earth, deep within the heart of the Amazon rainforest, a soldier watched the sky burn. Captain James Callahan crouched in the undergrowth, his face streaked with dirt and sweat, his breath slow and measured. Around him, his squad remained motionless, their bodies blending seamlessly with the tangled flora. Not a single leaf rustled, not a single branch snapped. He'd seen enough of the alien assault to know the truth. Earth's forces had never stood a chance. The armored colossi that patrolled the ruins of Rio de Janeiro were beyond anything human engineering could counter. The drones that scoured the skies rendered air superiority irrelevant. The war had ended before it had even begun. But Callahan wasn't here to fight a conventional war. "Movement, West Side," murmured Ortega, his spotter. The soldier had barely moved his lips, yet the message carried clearly through the comm's earpiece. Callahan adjusted his grip on his rifle, though he doubted he'd need it. His gaze flicked toward the treetops, where thick foliage concealed them from the alien patrol below. The enemy had arrived precisely as expected. 5 troops in sleek, segmented armor, accompanied by 2 quadrupedal drones that moved with unnerving fluidity. Their weapons pulsed with an eerie, cyan glow. The aliens moved with arrogant precision, sweeping through the undergrowth in a loose formation. Their scanners hummed softly, attempting to pierce the jungle's natural camouflage. They were looking, but they weren't seeing. A mistake. A vine snapped. Not naturally, too deliberate, too controlled. The nearest alien soldier barely had time to turn before something moved from the canopy, fast and unseen. The gleaming edge of a combat knife whispered through the air, parting armor, slicing deep. The alien let out a strangled gurgle as it collapsed, its body hitting the damp earth without a sound. Two of the remaining soldiers tensed, their weapons shifting to thermal mode, scanning for heat signatures. A sharp whistle cut through the night, a signal. From the shadows, three more figures emerged, swift as predators. Ortega struck first, his suppressed rifle hissing death through the damp air. Another alien crumpled. The two drones reacted instantly, their sleek bodies whirring to life, scanning for movement. Before they could fire, twin arrows, silent and precise, pierced their sensors, sending a crackle of short-circuiting energy sparking into the undergrowth. The last two soldiers barely had time to react before Callahan dropped from the canopy, his boots striking the chest of one, sending it sprawling. In a single fluid motion, he drew his sidearm, pressed the barrel beneath the alien's jaw, and fired. The final invader turned to flee, but something caught its leg, a coiled trap, fashioned from the very vines that had mocked as primitive. It fell hard, struggling, its plasma rifle jerking upward. Callahan knelt beside it, pressing his knife to its throat. The alien's silver eyes darted in frantic confusion, disbelief clear on its features. How? Callahan leaned in close, voice barely above a whisper. Welcome to the jungle. With a swift motion, it was over. The squad melted back into the foliage, leaving behind nothing but silence. No tracks, no sound, no evidence. Only the dead. By the time the Galactic Union realized what happened, the bodies would be bloated with jungle heat, claimed by the creeping vines and relentless insects. The jungle was merciless. It consumed all, and it had just begun to feast. Night fell over the jungle, thick and absolute. The canopy above swallowed the starlight, casting the world below into a darkness so complete that only the insects dared to stir. For the invaders, it was a suffocating, alien thing, a realm without logic, where their technology faltered, their senses dulled, and something unseen watched them from the shadows. Varric paced within the dim confines of his forward operating base, a sleek prefabricated structure that hovered above the jungle floor on anti-grav stabilizers. Holoscreens lined the walls, displaying fragmented footage from the latest scouting missions. The jungle had swallowed his soldiers whole, leaving behind only garbled transmissions, static-filled cries, and brief glimpses of movement. Never enough to identify their attackers, only enough to confirm their existence. This is unacceptable, Varric murmured, his voice a blade of ice. These humans are insects, not warriors. How is it that my forces continue to vanish? General Rax hesitated before answering. The jungle, Commander, it's interfering with our scans, obscuring movement. We've detected crude traps, primitive yet effective. They use the terrain against us. Varric's lip curled. The terrain. He turned sharply, gesturing toward the displays. You're telling me the greatest military force in the galaxy is being outmaneuvered by trees. Rax flinched but said nothing. Varric exhaled slowly, tempering his irritation. Double the patrols. Send the Reapers in first. Flush them out. On the ground, the Reapers spread through the jungle in relentless waves. They were not flesh and blood, but mechanical constructs. Spindly, insectoid drones equipped with thermal optics and razor-thin plasma blades. They moved without sound, without hesitation, their scanners sweeping through the tangled undergrowth. They found nothing. No heat signatures. No footprints. Not even a whisper of movement. One Reaper reached the edge of a stagnant pool, its optical lens shifting to analyze the water. The liquid was murky, still, covering a layer of decomposing foliage. Nothing living registered. Then the water moved. A figure surged up from the depths, shrouded in mud, eyes glinting like an animal's. A blade caught the moonlight just long enough to glisten before it struck home, driving deep into the Reaper's central processor. The machine convulsed, twitching violently, then collapsed in a heap of lifeless metal. Across the jungle, more Reapers fell, one by one, dragged into the darkness. Callahan crouched beside the remains of his latest kill, wiping mud from his face. His squad had spent the better part of the day submerged, waiting for the enemy to come to them. Now, as the jungle came alive with panicked alien chatter, he allowed himself the faintest smirk. He tapped his earpiece. Ortega, report. A voice crackled through the comms, low and steady. Took down 3. No survivors. Callahan turned to his second-in-command, Sergeant Imani. She nodded once, her sharp eyes gleaming in the dim light. We move before they recover. The team slipped through the undergrowth, ghosting between gnarled roots and towering ferns. They were barefoot, their skin coated in a mixture of mud and crushed leaves to mask their scent. Their weapons were a patchwork of human and alien tech, rifles stripped of excess weight, blades sharpened to a whisper-thin edge, and explosives cobbled together from salvaged plasma cells. They moved without sound, without hesitation, the jungle bending to accommodate them. The enemy was learning, but too slowly. By the time the next patrol arrived at the scene of the slaughter, the special forces were gone. Varric seethed. His forces were being hunted. The reports made no sense. There were too few human fighters to account for the losses they were suffering. It was as if the jungle itself had turned against them. He would not allow it. New orders went out. The jungle would burn. Flamethrower units deployed in squads of 4, their weapons spewing sheets of liquid fire across the landscape. The towering trees crackled as flames licked their trunks, embers swirling into the night sky. Smoke coiled upward and thick, choking plumes. The alien soldiers stood in tight formation, their armor glinting orange in the glow of destruction. No more hiding. No more ambushes. They would reduce the entire rainforest to ash if necessary. For a moment, it seemed to work. The darkness retreated before the fire, the jungle's many voices growing silent. Even the night insects had ceased their ceaseless song. Then, the first soldier screamed. The fire had driven the enemy toward them. Figures erupted from the smoke, their bodies painted in streaks of ash and blood. They moved faster than the aliens had anticipated, striking with inhuman precision. A knife found the exposed joint of flamethrower trooper's armor, slicing deep. The soldier staggered back, his weapon igniting his own squad in a chain reaction of uncontrolled flame. Snipers hidden in the remaining foliage picked off stragglers with single, surgical shots. Ortega dropped from a tree, his rifle cracking once before he disappeared back into the smoke. Callahan wrenched a plasma rifle from a dying enemy's grip, turning it on the advancing reinforcements. The jungle had not been their sanctuary. It had been their weapon, and now it was theirs again. The attack lasted only minutes. When the last alien fell, Callahan exhaled, watching the flames sputter in the damp air. The fire had failed to consume the rainforest entirely. Too much moisture, too much life. The jungle had fought back, refusing to die so easily. From the wreckage of their failed assault, the alien forces retreated. In his command center, Varric watched in silence as the latest footage replayed. His forces had been scattered, their technology rendered useless in a battlefield they did not understand. The humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like ghosts. He would not admit aloud. But for the first time since the invasion began, a sliver of unease crept into his mind. The battle was not over, but it was no longer going according to plan. The jungle had become a graveyard. Alien bodies lay tangled in the undergrowth, their once pristine armor now smeared with mud and blood. The metallic scent of scorched circuits mixed with the thick, humid air, a testament to the war that had slithered beneath the canopy. Somewhere in the distance, the hoarse cries of night birds echoed, their calls distorted by the dense foliage, turning them into something almost human. Callahan crouched in the shadows, watching the latest patrol move cautiously through the ruins of their own failure. These ones were smarter, more wary. They had abandoned their rigid formations, their movements less mechanical now, more like creatures adapting to an unfamiliar predator. But it wasn't enough. He tapped his earpiece twice, a silent signal. The first alien soldier never saw the wire stretch low between the roots. The moment his foot caught, he was yanked backward into the waiting embrace of a noose woven from jungle vines. His squad turned at the sudden strangled gasp, but there was no time to react. A single suppressed shot cracked through the air, and a second soldier crumpled, a hole neatly punched through the weak point beneath his chin. Panic took hold. The remaining troops fanned out, scanning the trees, weapons raised. A third fell, dragged into the underbrush by unseen hands. Then silence. A heartbeat passed. Then another. The last soldier turned wildly, eyes flicking between the trees, his breath ragged. His helmet's optics flickered between infrared and night vision, searching for something, anything. But all he found was a whisper in the wind, carried on the rustling leaves. A blade kissed the side of his throat. Callahan leaned in close, voice barely audible. "Run." The soldier didn't hesitate. He bolted, crashing through the undergrowth, his terrified gasps fading into the distance. Let him tell the others. Let the fear spread. Imani stepped in the shadows, wiping her blade clean. "That makes 4, she murmured. "And 1 messenger." Callahan nodded, scanning the treetops where Ortega and the others waited, silent as wraiths. This was how they would win, not by brute force, not by matching firepower, but by unraveling their enemy thread by thread. The aliens weren't just losing bodies. They were losing control. Their communications were already in disarray. The jungle's thick canopy choked their signals, forcing them to rely on relay towers, which the special forces had been systematically destroying. Without coordination, their movement became erratic, their responses sluggish. They were beginning to fear the very terrain they had once dismissed. And fear was the sharpest weapon of all. Deep within the alien command post, Varric watched the unfolding disaster with mounting fury. The latest report from his remaining officers confirmed what he already knew. The humans had turned the war into something unrecognizable. His forces weren't just being ambushed. They were being hunted, their discipline shattered, their formations crumbling. The Galactic Union did not lose wars. It consumed. It conquered. It erased. But here, on this backward, primitive world, something was different. Rax shifted uneasily beside him. "Morale is deteriorating," he admitted. "Troops refuse to enter the jungle alone. Some have even removed their tracking beacons to avoid being targeted. Cowards." Varric's hands clenched behind his back. "Deploy the war mechs. Burn everything." "Commander," Rax hesitated. "If we escalate further, we risk." "I did not ask for your concerns, General. I asked for results." Within the hour, the jungle trembled. The war machines descended like gods of steel and fire. Towering mechs, each the size of a small building, stomped through the rainforest, their servos whining, their weaponized limbs carving a path of destruction. Flamethrowers belched liquid fire, reducing ancient trees to charred skeletons. Cannons obliterated entire clearings in deafening bursts of energy. Callahan watched the devastation from a ridge, jaw tight. They had expected escalation, but not this fast. The jungle had always been their ally, but now it was being stripped away, turned into barren wasteland. Without cover, without their traps, they would lose the one advantage that had kept them alive. Imani knelt beside him, eyes tracking the machines below. "We need to take them out before they push deeper." "Agreed," Callahan said, "but we can't fight them head-on." Ortega smirked, adjusting his rifle. "Good thing we never do." Their plan formed in silence. The war mechs were powerful, but power meant weight. Weight meant pressure. Pressure meant vulnerability. Callahan tapped his comms. "Lead them to the river." The trap was set in motion. The special forces struck fast, weaving through the burning jungle, taunting the machines with scattered gunfire. The mechs turned in response, their towering frames swiveling as they stomped toward the source of the attack. They moved with terrifying precision, but precision was not instinct. Precision could be exploited. Step by step, they were lured toward the river. The water stretched wide and deceptively calm, its surface glassy beneath the moonlight. The mechs didn't hesitate. Their scanners showed solid ground beneath the surface, a shallow crossing. But the jungle had secrets. The moment the first mech stepped forward, the river swallowed. A sinkhole, carefully rigged with explosives, collapsed beneath the massive weight. The machine let out a synthetic shriek as it pitched forward, sinking into the depths. Water churned, sucking it down like the maw of some ancient beast. The second mech hesitated, but too late. More charges detonated, and the bank caved beneath it, dragging it under. The third, the last, tried to retreat, but Callahan was already in position. A well-placed grenade found a joint between its knee servos. The explosion sent it crashing forward, its immense frame slamming into the mud. And then silence. The jungle, wounded and scorched, remained standing, and so did they. As the smoke cleared, Callahan exhaled, glancing at his team. They were bruised, exhausted, but alive. The war wasn't over. But now the enemy knew the truth. This was their battlefield, and they were never leaving. The air reeked of burnt foliage and ozone, a bitter stench clinging to the jungle like the remnants of a dying fire. Smoke curled lazily through canopy, twisting in the damp air as if reluctant to leave. The battle had scarred the land, yet the jungle endured, its roots digging deeper, its shadows stretching longer. And within those shadows, the hunters remained. Callahan crouched low, his fingers brushing against the damp soil, feeling its warmth, its life. The mechs were gone, their carcasses claimed by the river, but the war had not ended. If anything, it had only just begun. The enemy would not accept this failure quietly. He could feel in the stillness, in the unnatural hush that had settled over the rainforest. The jungle was listening, waiting, as if it too sensed a storm about to break. A flicker of movement. He turned his head slightly, just enough to catch Ortega's signal, a clenched fist, followed by two fingers pointed east. Callahan followed his gaze, scanning the undergrowth. A single alien soldier stood among the ruins of the last firefight, weapon lowered, helmet tilted slightly upward. At first glance, he appeared lost, perhaps even wounded, but there was no fear in his posture, only patience. A scout. Callahan exhaled slowly, adjusting his grip on his rifle. The enemy was probing them now, seeking weaknesses, unraveling the mystery that had turned their overwhelming force into a fragmented, broken thing. This was different from before, more deliberate. A trap. He tapped his earpiece. "Imani." Already moving, came the reply. The jungle stirred around them, its silence giving way to the faintest rustle of leaves, the whisper of blades sliding free. The aliens had underestimated this place, had dismissed it as primitive, chaotic. They had not realized the truth. The jungle was an extension of its defenders. The scout turned abruptly, as if sensing the shift in the air. He reached for his weapon, but it was too late. A single shot rang out, a clean, sharp crack that echoed through the trees. The alien crumpled, his body folding into the earth, and then the real fight began. The jungle erupted with movement. Shapes flickered through the underbrush, boots striking wet soil, the sharp hiss of plasma cutting to the thick air. The enemy had been waiting for them, their forces hidden just beyond the tree line, blending into the smoke and ruin. Callahan rolled, the heat of a plasma bolt searing the ground where he had crouched a second before. He came up firing, his shots precise, controlled. Ortega had already vanished into the trees, his rifle singing death from the branches above. Imani struck from the side, her blade carving through armor with brutal efficiency. The aliens fought back, their movements more desperate now, their firepower less disciplined. They had learned, yes, but not fast enough. The battle twisted and churned through the jungle, bodies falling, the undergrowth drinking deep of blood both human and alien. And then, just as subtly as it had begun, it ended. The last enemy staggered back, weapons shaking in his grasp. His helmet was cracked, one eye exposed, a wide, glassy thing filled with something Callahan had seen before. Understanding. The alien dropped his rifle. His breath came ragged, his body trembling with exhaustion. Callahan kept his weapon raised, watching, waiting. A choice. Varric watched the footage in silence. The grainy body cam feed flickered with static, but the message was clear. His forces had been reduced to a shattered remnant. The jungle had not been conquered. It had swallowed them whole. A slow rage curled through him, coiling tight around his ribs. The Galactic Union had never suffered defeat like this. Not here, not on a backwater world that should have been crushed beneath their heel. Rack stood beside him, silent, waiting. The other officers had stopped offering excuses. There was nothing left to say. Varric exhaled, long and measured. Recall the fleet. Rax hesitated. But only for a moment. There was no argument to be made. No salvaging what had already been lost. The order rippled through the ranks. Soldiers abandoned their outposts, marching in tight, weary formations toward their waiting transports. The jungle watched them go, its silence pressing down upon them, a quiet mockery of their retreat. As the last ships lifted off, the rainforest exhaled. Birds took flight, the trees swayed, and the special forces watched from the shadows, unseen, undefeated. Callahan wiped the sweat from his brow, staring at the sky as the alien vessels disappeared beyond the clouds. Imani stepped beside him, arms crossed. Think they'll come back? Callahan let out a breath, slow and steady. Not soon. Ortega chuckled. Guess they finally learned. Callahan nodded. The jungle had taught them well.